I'm very happy with Open Gov because I no longer have so many requests to review stuff personally. Decoration. Yeah, how to say it? It's good and bad, right? Like anytime. So whoever, I don't know who Hacken is. He said he used to be anonymous. You would need a whole new proposal.
Really?
The funds have to be there when the proposal executes. Yeah, I mean, it's close. I hope within the next 3 months it will actually be deployed. And this is really interesting. It has a ton of functionality. And I also have some ideas of like some cross-chain applications we can use. Like, yeah, I'm trying to think here. Like, there's a lot of ways that it could go. I mean, like, so I don't know the details of how the implementation would work, but like we've also talked about like boost slots. So like even if you have a slot, if you need extra capacity, you could use pay-as-you-go.
Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Claudio and this is Chain, and joining me today is Joe Petrowsky from Parity. I'm really happy to have you here, Joe. Thank you very much. We're at Polkadot Decoded, by the way. We are in a small booth once again, but it is good because it's a great place for interviews, right? Joe, what do you think of Decoded so far?
Yeah, it's been a good crowd for sure. I haven't actually seen any talk because I keep running into people in the hallway. But yeah, a lot of Parachains teams here, and really good to see what people are building.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the reasons why there's so many people is because it's not spread around the world anymore. It's like centralized in this location, so which is a bit ironic, isn't it? Because it's like decentralization, centralization, but then we have the viewing parties which are happening around the world. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, what's your take right now? I mean, since open governance launched on Polkadot, what's your take on the sentiment with open governance? I mean, I get that it's making life easier for developers, given that you no longer need to wait for the council to check those proposals and you can just push them in. What's your take on it overall, like from perspective of users who want to deploy something now and they no longer have to wait for the council to get something deployed?
Yeah, I mean, like, to speak from a few perspectives, like I was on the council, so yeah. I'm very happy with Open Gov because I no longer have so many requests to review stuff personally. There's definitely a learning curve with it. Like, yeah. I mean, even to figure out myself how to make a proposal. I mean, I was kind of like trying to figure this out before there was a UI for it, yeah. And I think people tend to think of these features as like, a single palette, like Open Gov palette or something, but yeah. That's not how it actually works. There's, I think, probably 4 or 5 palettes that are all kind of wired together and configured that make up Open Gov. And so to really use these things, you have to figure out what's the relationship between these palettes. And of course, like the UI kind of does that for the user. It gives them a button, like submit a proposal. But there was definitely a learning curve at first, especially with the fellowship and how this works. But yeah. I think we figured it out. I built a tool myself for submitting proposals, and yeah. This has been quite useful for me. I thought it was going to be like a simple thing, like just a couple transactions, like I want to submit this proposal, and then 700 lines of code later, yeah, I have a function to submit a proposal. But I mean, as these tools come out, like they'll go into UIs and make it a better experience for users.
What was your experience with Kusama Open Gov? I know there's been a lot of drama because of the treasury spending. It went under a certain amount, and then we had an individual who was anonymous for some time, Hacken, known as Hacken. And he's been basically blocking people from getting treasury funding. Not everyone, but a lot of spends were being blocked. Like, what's your take on that? Like, did you think we've learned something from that, or how do you think that could help Polkadot Open Gov?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of how to say it? It's good and bad, right? Like anytime. So whoever, I don't know who Hacken is. He said he used to be anonymous. I still don't know who they are, but they do represent like a large token holder, but not really relative to the overall network, right? Like it's not like they're coming out with like 5% of the supply or something, right? So like I would like to see the positive outcome be that people can actually rally more support for something that could overweight Hacken's disapproval. And as political statements go, people usually take them too far, or it's not really like, they're not trying to be pragmatic, right? They're trying to make a statement, and it's probably a healthy statement, right? Like there should be a little bit more scrutiny in how the treasury gets spent. I would like to see that done in a more technical way of kind of like splitting up the treasury into groups that are more specialized, right? Because like I kind of felt this from the council, like people come with a treasury proposal and I think like, well, I'm an engineer, how am I supposed to evaluate if this like spending on a conference is really worth it, right? Like, I don't know this. I'm not the right person to make this decision. So I'd kind of like to see treasury spending kind of split up into like, we still think of the treasury as being like a single palette. I would like to see multiple instances of the treasury palette deployed along with collectives. So like there can be like an ecosystem technical collective. There can be like a media collective, right? And media events and stuff like this. And so if these treasuries get funded, if you want like Block Explorer that supports all parachains, go to the Ecosystem Technical Fellowship and ask them to spend from their treasury. If you want funding for events, go to the Media Fellowship, right? Like, I think there's better ways to handle this. And I do think like the political statement that Hacken is making is maybe having a negative short-term impact, but actually leads to better scrutiny and like evaluation of proposals in the future by coming up with better tools to deal with it.
Very good point. And I actually want to hear from you, if you do know, with regards to the treasury. So if it was to be spent completely, what would be the process for somebody who would be wanting to get funding to get funding? Is there a queue system? How does it actually work if there is?
It would have to wait till the funds come back into the treasury.
Okay.
So.
And is it like a queuing system? So for example, let's say I've got a proposal right now, referendum, and the treasury is empty, and I happen to be the first to have won the referendum, but there's nothing in the treasury. Would I be the first in the queue, or would I be, or does it depend on the amount? No, but when when it replenishes, so when new funds come into the treasury.
You would need a whole new proposal.
Really?
The funds have to be there when the proposal executes.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, interesting. So there's basically no queue, no nothing. You just have to wait till it fills up, recreate everything, get voted, win the vote, and then, okay.
Well, we hope the treasury doesn't go empty though.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to ask this question because I don't think anybody has answered this, and this has been on many people's minds. It's like, what happens when it's empty, you know? So, okay, thanks for telling us that. Let's talk about asynchronous backing. So how do you see that changing the way parachains work right now? I mean, it is going to improve speed, but what else do you think is going to improve? What positivity do you see from all of this with asynchronous backing?
Yeah, it's mostly improved speed. Like it's stuff that, from a user perspective, you'll probably see that the block time goes from 12 seconds to 6 seconds. So that's better. Of course, the blocks can also hold more. Yeah. So yeah, there will be an improvement in throughputs, but this is probably not something that most people see. It'd really be for like, it'll affect parachain developers and how they configure their runtime, that they want to actually use this and have a 6-second block time instead of 12 seconds. Yeah. But that should be the main thing. Like from a user perspective, your transaction gets included faster, but it's something you don't really see so much of at the surface.
And what about the upcoming bridge between Kusama and Polkadot? How long do you reckon it's going to take before it's going to be ready? Because I'm seeing like, I think that you're moving like really fast towards that deployment to say, yeah, it is ready, but I don't know when that's going to be. And how do you think, like, what benefits do you think we can see from that right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's close. I hope within the next 3 months it will actually be deployed. Pending some like governance cycles, right? At least proposed within 3 months, I hope. Okay. And then definitely a lot of use cases. So, having Polkadot and Kusama bridge together, like we can have some assets. So we know there's going to be some assets that are probably only deployed on Polkadot and not on Kusama, but we can move those assets to Kusama. We can also like deduplicate some things. So right now the Tech Fellowship is on Kusama and Polkadot, and it's just the same group that was copied from one to the other. Yeah. Right. But like with a bridge, we can just say this is the Technical Fellowship, and if they want to execute something on Kusama, they just send it over the bridge. Yeah. So I think there'll be quite a few applications that use this bridge for kind of consolidating, and then it can also go the other way, right? Like if Kusama wants to be as an entity, like a member of a collective, or participate in some way in Polkadot, it can send messages itself over the bridge with the origin of Kusama. So
yeah,
that could have some interesting cases.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that. Let's talk about the parachains on Kusama. I know that there's been a lot of drama recently with parachain teams leaving the Canary network and moving on to Polkadot. I mean, do you think, I understand that Kusama is serving its purpose to Polkadot for technical changes, right? Because you're seeing like Open Gov has launched on Kusama first, then you went to Polkadot. So I think we're going to continue to see that. But in terms of the parachain team sustainability, do you think that can actually hurt Kusama in some way with teams leaving? Do you have like a plan to maybe bring people back, new developers or something? How is that? Do you think that could be solved with pay-as-you-go parachains? Because that's another thing that I want to ask you about. So while we're on that topic.
Kusama's hard. I mean, everybody was excited about it at first, and like it's still actually very useful to us. Like by having more of a real-world validator set than like an internal testnet or something, we get to see what stuff actually looks like in production. We definitely need to see more parachains on Kusama. Like we're working on that with this thing called glutton parachains to test the network a bit more before we increase the number of Polkadot parachains. I guess like as far as people wanting to deploy 2 parachains, one on Kusama and one on Polkadot, I think that's up to individual business cases, right? Like it is extra work to maintain 2 networks. We've heard some people say it's kind of confusing for their users, like which one do we use? If there's a purpose, then they'll find something for it, right?
Yeah, and let's talk about the pay-as-you-go parachains. So once that's going to launch, how do you see parachain teams being affected by the pay-as-you-go parachains? Like say if new developers come in, will it be easier for those new developers to onboard? And will that mean that the existing parachain teams will find it challenging because they had to fight for those slots? Will they continue to have to fight for those slots and win leases? Or can they migrate to a pay-as-you-go parachain as well? Can you please talk about that? Like if there's...
Yeah, I mean, I think it really lowers the barrier of entry. So before you had to go like the 0 to 1, right? It's like you would build a parachain and then like everything is based off of acquiring a slot, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of risk involved in not actually acquiring a slot. And the pay-as-you-go model just really lets people connect right away and start deploying something. As far as like, existing parachains, like, of course you can migrate to a pay-as-you-go model. You can re-up a slot. I'm trying to think here, like, there's a lot of ways that it could go. I mean, like, so I don't know the details of how the implementation would work, but like we've also talked about like boost slots. So like even if you have a slot, if you need extra capacity, you could use pay-as-you-go in addition to your slot, right? So this would be kind of like, in a data center, there's like these bursts, like auto scaling type of thing. So you could have something like that. I think it makes it Polkadot's much more accessible that you're basically guaranteed to be able to connect a parachain. Or it might not even be called a parachain at that point, right? But like you can connect some chain and get execution from Polkadot.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so it sounds like you've got a lot of big plans to overcome the challenges now. Cool, thank you. That's been all from my side. Just if you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share, anything exciting coming up that we should look forward to as contributors to the ecosystem and holders.
There's a lot of stuff coming up, at least on my roadmap. You should try to hunt down Rob K to talk about async backing and pay-as-you-go, because he has a couple team members here as well. So you should talk to them about to get some of like the details on pay-as-you-go and async backing. From my side, like, we have a ton of stuff that's coming in the pipeline, like definitely like more collectives on the collectives chain, a bit more features around these collectives. So kind of making like the core fellowship a bit more advanced and then launching some other stuff as collectives like Polkadot Ambassador Program, Polkadot Ecosystem Technical Fellowship, these types of things on Assets Hub, formerly known as Statement. I have a lot of stuff coming. So we have, of course, this asset conversion feature. So you can pay your transaction fees in the asset. We have the NFT 2.0 thing, which is coming out. And this is really interesting. It has a ton of functionality. And I also have some ideas of like some cross-chain applications we can use. Like for collectives, it's only storing like the ranks and who's a member at each rank, but it doesn't really have any metadata about those members, right? Like you might want to say like, you know, this person is, you know, based in this region, or like they specialize in this topic or contribution, right? So we can kind of add that stuff into like NFT attributes on Asset Hub. We also have like foreign assets. So this is something I don't think a lot of people have really wrapped their head around, but you can actually take any asset, and I mean like any asset, like the native token of a parachain, a token on a parachain, Ethereum, an ERC20 token on Ethereum, and these can all be expressed in Asset Hub with asset IDs. And so there's a lot of stuff that we can do. I mean, you can literally represent any token in the world that is connected to Polkadot in some way on Asset Hub, and use the API of the assets palette to work with this and use it over XCM and everything. So this is a pretty big feature, and I don't think people quite see the power of it, but I think we can do a lot with it.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so you can do that to ensure that there's no new minting going on, right? It's the exact same token moved across different chains, and you can just transfer it across through XCM, right? That's the point of it.
So it can serve as basically like a single reserve location in the network. So if you're a custodian or something, you don't want to support 20 different parachains, but you want to support their assets. You can say, using XCM, you can say, I want to take this asset and I want to transfer it to this address on this chain. And Asset Hub will figure out, how do I get it to this chain, right?
Wow, interesting. It's powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And so, of course, you could, that asset, if you wanted to transact like on that asset's local or like home parachain, you could. But if you want to do with 20 assets, you might not want to integrate with 20 different parachains, right? But you can do this all from Asset Hub. And same for like other parachains. If they want to accept assets from other parachains, they might not want to work with, you know, one parachain has, for example, like zero knowledge balances. Another one has UTXOs. Another one has account-based, right? This all gets abstracted away. And you can say like, if you send me this asset via Asset Hub, I know how to handle it, right? So this is pretty cool.
Cool. Thank you very much, Joe. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. Hopefully people have learned more. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.